Hello, Dave. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Phoebe. Nice to be with you.
Yeah, great to meet you again. Yes, today we have a very important guest in our podcast. He's no other person than Dave Pennington. He's a leader in his industry and he has a unique way in coaching that, for myself, this is the first time I'm meeting somebody in that particular field. So let's look at it. Most business owners spend decades building their company only to discover it's worth far less than they expect. Some shut the door completely, others walk away exhausted. Many leave hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars on the table. Today's conversation is how to avoid that mistake. And we are joined today by, we're, we're honored to have you in our podcast today.
Well, thanks, Phoebe. Good to be with you and looking forward to chatting and sharing a little bit of information with you and your guest.
Yeah, okay. So let's say before we dive into the podcast, this is how the podcast is going to go. It's going to go in three parts. First of all, we'll start with your background and the industry trend you're seeing. We discuss your current challenges and the vision you want for Penn coaching for the next 12 months. Then we'll wrap up by exploring any necessary step. And again, I want to remind the audience and also our guests, it's a conversation. Because what we're looking at is a conversation. We are trying to see how far you've come to build a great company you have today. What are the challenges you have and what you're doubling down on. And of course, from my own perspective, the unique aspect of your coaching that we're going to have the privilege to hear from you today. So let's dive in. Dave, what led you into the business exit strategy and helping owners prepare for life after business?
Well, it's a longer story than maybe I need to share, but I'll give you a little bit about my background. This is kind of my third career. I've had Penn coaching consulting for about 10 years now, but originally I was in ministry. I did a lot in ministry for quite a number of years, mostly larger scale organizations that would typically involve both a church and a private school. And then I had sort of another career, if you want to call it that, in private education. I've been the head of school, I think of 5 or 6 schools, executive director of a state group with 37 schools in it, president of a state group on a national board, adjunct prof. So a lot in private education. And of course, all of that gives me a background in administration and organization and personnel and all those kind of things. So Penn Coaching Consulting was sort of a natural outgrowth of that, where I wanted to shift my focus and be able to help with leaders. And I've kind of had some iterations even within Penn Coaching. I started more in what I would call the leadership development space, where I still do a lot of that. I help leaders grow in their leadership. I typically find that most business owners or leaders there's two common themes. One is they're doing too many things. They're trying to do too many things, and often they're doing the wrong things. And what I mean by that is they're doing things that they could delegate to someone else and sort of reserve their time and energy to do the things they're really good at doing and they really love doing. So leadership is an important part of what I do. And then I've also helped companies with scaling. Most of the time when you start a business, you kind of do everything at first. But then you reach what I call a saturation point, where you're kind of like this. In other words, you're in up to just your nose is barely above water. And what happens is your company cannot grow anymore because you as an owner cannot handle anymore. So that's a good indication you're not structured properly. And so you want to make sure you're working in the space that you love doing, that you're good at doing, and then you want to develop what I call a complementary dream team. You want to find people who have strengths in areas where you're weak. In fact, I word it this way. I said, believe it or not, there are actually people that love doing what you hate doing, and they're really good at it. You need to find those people and get them on your team.
Awesome.
And then about a year and a half ago, I really got interested in a newer space for me. I went through a certification process with valuations and acquisitions. And so now I'm really primarily focusing upon helping business owners really position their companies so they have very high value and so that they're attractive to buyers when they want to exit their company, whether it's in the next few years or 10 years down the road or whatever. You'll never go wrong by structuring it properly so that when the time comes, it will have high value and be attractive to buyers. So
Awesome.
that's what I'm doing right now.
All right, that's very good. What made you realize so many entrepreneurs are leaving value on the table?
I just bump into them all the time. A lot of people, if you think about it, most people, if they've built a business, they've never exited a business.
Yeah.
They've spent 25, 30 years building this business, but they've never sold a business before, and they don't really know what to do. And so what happens is often when you don't know what to do, you know what you do? You just kick the can down the road and say, well, I'll figure that out later. Well, I'll figure that out later. Well, 5 years passes by, 10 years passes by. Pretty soon it's getting to the point where you don't have the time left.
Yeah.
And what happens is when you get ready to exit, if you don't really position your company properly, what will happen is you will leave a lot of money on the table because people are going to come in and they're going to lowball you in terms of their offer simply because you're not really positioned to be attractive to buyers and to have a high value. And so in some cases that can be hundreds of thousands of dollars or even millions of dollars that you're leaving on the table, that if you would just take maybe 12 to 24 months ahead of time and really structure your company, kind of go through all the nuts and bolts of getting it ready to position itself to sell, you would find the value would be much more and it would be much more attractive to buyers.
Awesome. So again, why do so many business owners overestimate what their company actually worth?
I think it's because if you think about it, when you build something, you're proud of it.
Yeah.
You put a lot of blood, sweat, tears into it. It has a lot of emotional value to you because you've invested in it. You love your employees, you love your customers, you have a lot of sentimental value and all of that. But the problem with that is the buyer, he doesn't look at your business like you do. In fact, I tell sellers all the time, when you get ready to sell, rather than looking at your business like a seller, you need to look at your business like a buyer. It's a whole different perspective. They're coming in and saying, okay, is this a viable business? Does it have potential for upside on more income? Does it have proper organizational structure, good employees, good SOPs, standard operating procedures, a good client base? I mean, they're, the financials, they're looking at other things because those are the things that they're buying, and they want to know that business can continue, can grow, and can actually produce an income for them.
Awesome. That's very great. Okay, the next question is, what are the biggest mistakes owners make when preparing or not preparing for an exit?
Probably the one biggest is the company is built too much upon them as the owner. In other words, you can't function without them. And when that happens, the buyer is going to look at that and he's going to say, well, I like your company. I like, you've got some good things in place, but this company couldn't really run without you. And usually if they're even willing to buy it, and a lot of times they're not willing to buy it, they will give you a low offer and they will require what's called a buyout, which is this. I'm going to give you a price. It's not really what you're wanting. And by the way, I need you to stick around for a couple years and work for the company. You become an employee for the company, because I'm concerned that when you leave, the clients or the customers are going to leave. And it's risky to me to buy a company that's built too much upon the owner. And so that's probably the major issue I see over and over again.
Okay, that's very great. So what percentage of businesses are truly sellable in your opinion?
Oh boy, that's a hard question. It really depends. I mean, it depends on the market sometimes. It depends on the industry. You think about today's world. I mean, every day you hear about layoffs and downsizing and all that, but you also hear about other industries. For example, trades. Right now trades are kind of hot. If you have an electrical company, you're an electrician, there's lots of work. There's lots of opportunity, particularly with all these centers coming in where they're looking for electricians. So that's a very valuable company to own. And depending on where you are and some of those other kind of things, it could be something that would be very attractive to buyers because they know they can get work.
Okay, that's very good. So why do so many owners wait too long to think about succession or exit planning?
I think some of it is they're just busy in building and working the company that they own, that they're not thinking about it, or maybe they don't really know what to do, so they just don't do anything. It's overwhelming to think about it, and so I'll figure that out later. I'll just think about that. I'll just do it down the road.
Yeah, okay. That's very good. So what increases a company valuation in the eye of a buyer?
Well, it's a number of things. I have an assessment that I make available to owners if they want to know kind of a rough idea of what their company is worth. It gives you a range.
Mm-hmm.
It's based upon 8 metrics. It gives you a score in each of those areas, and it looks at 8 different areas. One of them I've already mentioned, which is how dependent is the business upon the owner. Okay, so it'll score you between 0 to 100, and the idea is if it scores you low, then it's too dependent. If it scores you high, it's not that dependent. But there are other areas. For example, recurring revenue is another important one.
Yeah.
Do you have a business that you have? Think of like Netflix.
Yeah.
You have a monthly amount that steadily comes in. Well, that really helps cash flow, so that's very attractive to a buyer. It can be other things. For example, do you have good financials? Do you have clean books? A lot of companies, their books are kind of messy, and they're hard to know. Is what you're really telling me, is that really true, or is this your estimation, or whatever? So there are some key areas like that. I'll give you one more. Sometimes if you have a business that is too dependent upon either one customer or one employee, what happens is people are reluctant to buy it. Like maybe say 50% of your income comes from one customer.
Wow.
Well, that's kind of risky, because what happens if that one customer goes away? I'm going to lose 50% of my income coming in right in the front door. I'm going to probably, as a buyer, go, I don't think I'm going to pause on that one. I don't. It's too risky for me.
Yeah, that's very good. So how important are system, leadership structure, and operational process?
Well, it's very important because, most business owners, their knowledge is between this ear and this ear. It's all in their head.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They know what to do. They know how to do it. They've got a good, they've done this for years. They get the job done. But the problem with that is nobody else knows it. So, if you're a business owner and you got hit by a truck today, could anybody even know what to do to run your business? Because a lot of times the employees don't really, they might understand one little sliver of what they do, but they don't know anything about the bigger picture. So having good processes and systems will enable the company to run well, but it also enables you to train people so that you can offload things. As an owner, you don't want everything on you. You want to be able to go on vacation. You want to be able to take a break. And if everything depends upon you, then what happens is it means that you don't have good processes and systems in place. So you want to get it on paper, and then you want to train key people to take over different areas of the business, so that you're not trying to do it all yourself.
That's very great. So you emphasize building a dream team. Why is leadership depth so critical?
I think because what happens is, somebody's got to have responsibility.
Yeah.
Okay, so as an owner, if I'm not training people and developing people to take over different aspects of the company, then that means I'm the one who has responsibility. I'm the one who drives everything. Now, honestly, some owners kind of like that because it kind of makes them feel like they're in charge, and boy, I can get this done and I can get that done. But when everything has to come across your desk and nobody has any authority to approve anything or to make decisions or to execute anything without coming to you, then what eventually happens is you become the bottleneck or the ceiling to the organization, and the company can't grow anymore because you can't handle anymore. Plus, your life is pretty stressful, and you rarely can even get away. When you're on vacation, you're on your laptop or you're on your phone almost 24/7, and your family doesn't really like that too much because, it's not really a vacation.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how can owners shift from being the business to building a business that runs without them?
Well, I think a lot of it is, first of all, recognizing that's the way you're running the business. Okay. A lot of times we're doing things, but we haven't really thought through what we're doing or why we're doing it.
Yeah.
And we're also, I mean, think back. Let's say you start a business. Well, I'll say you start a widget business. Okay, you're going to create the widget. You're going to sell the widget. You're going to
Yeah.
pack the widget. You're going to ship the widget. You're going to invoice the widget. You're going to do everything. As your company begins to grow, what you want to do is you want to give away jobs. You don't want to keep doing. A lot of business owners just keep adding hats. So they've done
Mhm.
everything they've done in the past. Now they're adding a new hat. Now they're adding a new hat. Now they're adding a new. And eventually you reach a saturation point where you
Yeah.
can't add any more hats, even if you wanted to. I mean, you'd be surprised how many business owners, their health is shot. They're all stressed out. Their marriages are shot. They're all over the place because they're just trying to do too many things. And really, what you want to do is you want to really structure it so you grow as your business grows, and
Yeah.
you realign and reposition yourself as the business grows. And so your job is somewhat changing all the time. And you're keeping the things that are really important, but you're delegating the things that are not as important.
That's good. So as a follow-up to that, your answer, when should owner begin planning their exit?
I recommend usually a couple years before you're really ready to exit. And that's kind of on the short side sometimes because it can take more depending on your business and where you are and how it's structured. So a couple years, maybe more, 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. So what does a strong exit strategy actually looks like?
What does the strategy look like in
So a
terms of?
strong exit strategy, what does it actually looks
Well,
like?
I think it really comes down to how you're going to exit because, excuse me, a lot of times people have not thought about how they're going to exit.
Yeah.
Exit, I like the phrase exit options.
Mm-hmm.
For example, most people think when they're going to exit, they're just going to sell their business to someone else.
Okay.
Well, that's one option, but it's not the only one. For example, maybe you want to pass it on to your kids. That's a different roadmap. Okay, it's not the same type of exit. Maybe you want to sell it to your employees.
Okay.
That's a different exit. Or maybe you want to become what's called a silent owner, where you maintain the ownership of the company, but you're not involved in the day-to-day. So a lot of it comes down to what are your objectives? What are your goals? So if you're getting ready to retire and you want income for retirement, then that's going to shape everything. If money is not critical, there are plenty of ways. For example, I have a client right now who is selling his business to his employees. He doesn't really need the money. He has other resources for money. So he is not only going to sell the business to his employees, but he's going to finance the sell. So he's
Wow.
going to get the price that he wants for his business. He's going to get the interest on top of that he's financing for them, and he's going to spread his tax liabilities over a number of years, which will work to his advantage in many ways. So it all depends on really what your goals are, what your objectives are, what you're trying to do. If you're trying to sell it because you want to start another business, that's probably going to be a different pathway.
Yeah. Okay. It makes sense. Okay, many entrepreneurs expect their children to take over, but often they don't want the business. Why is that?
Why they don't want the business?
Mm-hmm.
You mean you're talking about people that have built something?
Yeah, and the children, they expect their children
Oh,
to
your
take
children,
over.
yeah.
And
Well,
many times they're not interested.
sometimes it's because they've not done anything to prepare them. Sometimes they worked in the business as they were growing up and it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a pleasant experience. Sometimes it's they've seen what it costs to run a business and how hard their mom or dad has worked to run
Mm-hmm.
that business, and they don't want to be that busy. They don't want to work that hard. They may not like the industry. So a lot of times I see parents who sort of automatically assume that if they want their kids to take over, that the kids will want to take over. They never even ask them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then they're surprised when they say, well, Dad, I don't really want to do that. I want to go do this. And they're often disappointed, maybe a little discouraged even. So I think a lot of it is you have to kind of start earlier. You have to look at your children to see, all right, do they have the aptitude to be an entrepreneur or a business owner? Not everybody does. Is it a good fit for them? And then some of it is if you don't have it structured properly, for them to step into it and take over it is a nightmare. You know, too many pieces, too many parts, too much all over the place. So some of it, if you position it properly and set it up properly, it becomes much more attractive for your son or daughter to want to take over.
Yeah, that's very good. So what happens emotionally and financially when there's no succession plan?
When there's no plan,
Yeah.
well, sometimes what happens is, frankly, you want to sell it, you need to sell it, but nobody wants to buy it. And you just wind up shutting it down, which is disastrous for your employees, for your clients or customers, and frankly, financially disastrous for you because you're not getting the benefit of all the work you've done for those 20 or 30 years to build it. So that's the worst case scenario. Or a last case is, hey, somebody will buy it, but they're going to give you pennies on the dollar, and you're going to lose a lot of money because you just didn't take the time to really put the plan together and be prepared.
Wow, that's very great. Okay, so how can owners protect both family and relations and business value?
Well, I think a lot of it is just having a well-run business that doesn't eat you alive, that's not too dependent upon you,
Yeah.
that you have good employees that can manage and run a lot of things without your help. So it's not controlling your life and taking over your life. You know, I mean, having a business gives you some freedom,
Yeah.
but a lot of times I tell people when they're on the startup mode, this, when you're getting ready to start a business, you want to think about what kind of lifestyle you want to have.
Yeah.
Most people do it the opposite way. They build a business and then they try to fit their lifestyles into the business. And it usually doesn't work very well. A much better way to do it is decide what kind of lifestyle you want to have, how much freedom you want to have, how much you want to work, what you want to do, and then you want to design your business to fit your lifestyle.
Yeah.
A lot of business owners, if they're honest, what they did in starting a business is they basically created a job for themselves. And it's a 24/7 job that never goes away, and it just sort of controls their lives, and it's not always fun. It's just a
Yeah.
lot of work.
Yeah. So what does legacy mean to you personally?
Legacy?
Yeah.
For me, I mean, I'm kind of in the legacy years of my life, and one of the things that's very important to me is what I would call impact.
Yeah.
You know, I love impacting leaders, particularly future leaders. You know, I call it the pebble in the pond concept. You know, if you've ever thrown a pebble in a pond, you know, once you throw that pebble in, there's a ripple effect. So I know if I can impact a leader, then that leader's, by impacting him or her, it will impact everyone in that organization, all their families.
Yeah.
So for me, a big thing with legacy is really having the impact in the lives of leaders so that I can help them, and then that will help others as well.
That's very great. So how do you see AI and automation impacting business valuations?
Well, I mean, I think AI is going to become more and more prevalent, you know, as businesses start to incorporate and assimilate things that AI can do. So, you know, in some cases, it might increase your profitability because you need less people. You know, if you have less people you have to pay, you should be more profitable. Sometimes AI, I think if you use it properly, it can be help you with strategy. You know, you have certain skills that you have, certain abilities that you have. Well, often AI can help you think through, okay, how could I market what I'm doing better? Or how can I maybe develop different packages that people would want to buy, or approaches or whatever. So it can help you with strategy where you could actually maybe increase your market or improve your marketing or your sales or a variety of different things. So I think, you know, AI is like a tool, but the key is you have to learn how to use it effectively, or else what happens, it's a little bit like having a bunch of tools that you know you don't really know how to use, and it won't help you that much. But I think in the future it is going to affect valuations, because if you're utilizing it properly, it should increase your valuation and help your business be more attractive to buy.
Okay. Let me go. So will company without system automation become harder to sell?
It can, if you have a company that doesn't have good structure, systems, and automation. You know, some of it depends on your market. There's a lot of variables here, but you really want good processes and systems that provide structure for your company
Yeah.
so that the buyer can see what you have developed and understand how he can think of it like this. If you've ever run track, like a relay race,
Mhm.
they have a baton that one runner passes off to another runner.
Yeah.
Okay. And the way they practice that handoff, what's called the handoff, over and over and over again, the reason they practice it so much is because if you drop the baton in in that race, the race is over. It's done. Okay. Well, sometimes what happens if you don't have your business structured properly, it's hard for the new buyer to be able to grab the baton and continue with the race. And
Mm.
so you really want that to be an easy transition, a one that he or she can envision. Okay, yeah, I see how this will work. I see how I could do well with this,
Yeah.
because that will make it more attractive to buy.
Yeah, that's very good. So, how important is operational efficiency in today's acquisition environment?
I think it's really important because if you're not, I mean, sometimes if you don't have good operational processes and systems, you're wasting a lot of money. You're not utilizing your people efficiently. Sometimes you maybe are doing more than you should need to be doing. Sometimes you're maybe not doing even the right things. A lot of times you don't know what you should be doing until you start to measure things and understand what's working and what's not working. And so operational efficiency is always important in any business because it will help you be more profitable. It will help things run smoother, and it just it's kind of like oil in the machine. It helps the machine run properly.
Okay, that's good. So, can technology actually reduce founders' dependency?
Well, I think some of it with founder dependency is you have to want to reduce it. Okay. I mean, I hate to say this, but a lot of owners don't necessarily want to reduce owner dependency because they feel like, hey, I've got this.
Mm.
Their ego is tied too much to being the owner and the one who controls everything. And so you got to want that to start with. And a lot of times you've got to trust people. All of us have gone through different things where maybe trust has been violated, and it's hard to trust once
Yeah.
you've been, someone's taken advantage of you. But you can do that with proper systems and metrics and things like that in place. But the idea is, I like to think of it like this: when you're the owner and everything is on you, something comes along. Well, I'm going to add this, and then I'm going to add this, and then we're going to add this. Okay, you're adding.
Yeah.
Okay, nothing wrong with adding, but you reach a saturation point where you can't add anymore. When you start to distribute responsibility and authority, you move from addition to multiplication. So
Mm.
now I have maybe 3 key people in my company who carry a sizable load of
Mm.
my company. And so now each of them can add some things. So
Yeah.
now instead of me just adding, now I have 3 other people that are adding. So I really move from adding or addition to multiplication, and it allows the company to grow and become more prosperous and profitable and all of that. So we think if we hold on to everything, we're going to be better off. But usually what happens if we try to hold on too tightly, we're actually worse off.
Yeah. Okay. Going back to what you said earlier about AI being a tool, most times when I have met people or leaders like you, most of the time, all they know about, or let me say, all what they talk about when they relate AI, they mostly relate AI as a tool, which is also a tool. And what does it give you? It boosts your productivity. But sometimes AI being a tool does not equate or equals automation, and that's where the most of them miss it. They think because they have ChatGPT or Claude,
Yeah.
that's automation. No, it's not an automation because the tool gives you boost your efficiency, but when you automate it, it's the process that you're automating, like scheduling your mails and meetings and stuff like that, and responding to email. And of course, when you now want to boost it, when it now becomes like when you keep optimizing it, it now transforms your business, and that's where what you call agentic AI comes in. But, why I really want to say that because most times people they just have that
Yeah, I
myopic
think I think
view.
yeah, I think most people today, I mean, it's still a little bit newer to
Mhm.
business, and they're trying to learn how to use it.
Yeah, they're learning.
And I find with AI, most people do not provide enough context for your company and your vision and what you're doing. And so what happens is when you ask AI a platform input,
Yeah.
it's sort of generically going out and grabbing general input to
Mm-hmm.
provide for you,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't have enough context. The more context you provide, the better AI can help you. And the other thing is, I think, understanding how to use AI where you kind of push back. AI in general tends to tell you you're doing a good job. Oh, that was brilliant. What you thought of, and you have to kind of say, now look, don't flatter me here. I need you to really scrutinize and analyze what I'm doing and how I can improve. So you have to kind of push back a little bit to really get the best results.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people are still on, I would say, the front end of learning how to use AI,
Yeah.
and they're typically using it in I would call it like AI light. They're using it in sort of
Primary level.
superficial
Yeah.
elementary level. They haven't learned how to really use it at a more advanced level. But I think that will come in time.
Yeah. And again, some people are always, some people have a negative concept about it that is going to take away their relevance and job and stuff like that. Anyway, I'll always let you bring that to light because most time people just say it's a tool. Yeah, it's a tool. But for you to have the greater impact, is to automate your process, of what you do because
Well,
that's
and
where
it can analyze and evaluate your process and
that's
often point out gaps
hmm?
or insufficiencies or inadequacies of the system that you
Yeah,
have so that you can then improve your system. So there's a lot of things it can do for you, but you got to
yeah,
know how to prompt it,
absolutely.
and you've got to know how to kind of go back and forth a little bit so you can get the results that you're after.
Yeah, but sometimes too, for you to have the optimate result, it's not just using the tool, but where you now automate your process because that's where
Yep.
the outcome, that's what you're looking for. Anyway, let's move into the next time question. So, what is working well for you right now at Penn Coaching, and what's been frustrating?
Well, I mean, for me, this is, I have what I would call kind of a boutique coaching and consulting company. So for me, I have a different business model than most people. Most people are looking for volume.
Okay.
They're looking for a lot of clients and scaling and growing. I'm at a different stage of life. I don't want a lot of clients, but I want the right clients. Okay. So
Yes.
for me, a full load is like a dozen clients a year,
Awesome.
but kind of high end clients who really have substantive work that they want to do with their companies. And so I function like a non equity strategic partner. So I don't
Okay.
have any equity in their company, but I function like a partner would. In fact, I say it this way. I may have shared this with you earlier. When you own a company, you got to talk to someone. You
Hmm.
can't just talk to anyone.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, if you're married, your spouse is tired of hearing about it because it's all you think about. It's on your mind all the time. So I become that sounding board and helping that person think through things. Another analogy I often give is I'm like a concierge doctor.
Okay.
There are doctors that are in medical systems and they don't like the system because it so controls them. They don't feel like they can provide adequate care for their patients. So they will step out of the medical system and create their own practice
Mhm.
where they might only have 100 patients. And the
Wow.
patients pay them a monthly stipend per month.
Hmm.
And that doctor takes care of all your medical needs. If there's interference that needs to be run with other doctors or hospital systems or whatever, they control all of that and help you with all of that. But
Hmm.
it allows them to provide a very high quality of care for their patients and make a good income and be a lot less stressed out because they're not trying to see, the medical systems wants you to see so many patients in a certain amount of time, and
Yeah.
you hardly even have time to talk to them, much less really provide good services for them. So I like to say I'm more like a concierge doctor where I have a high level of commitment to my clients and I really invest myself deeply into their lives, into their business, into their goals and objectives and that kind of thing. And so I have a little different model, more like a boutique coaching consulting or like a concierge doctor.
Awesome. That's very good. So, how do you measure success in a pen coaching rather?
For me, it's all about helping my clients accomplish what they want to achieve. I mean, obviously you want to make some money. Everybody wants to make money, but look,
Yeah.
if you have goals and objectives as a client, and I can help you reach those goals and objectives, and you come away thinking, "Wow, this is great. I mean, we got there. We did what we wanted to do. This thing worked out well," then their success really becomes my success.
Yeah. Awesome. That's very great. So, is there any metrics you're focused on improving to make sure at least you get to your goal of the number of the clients that we you want in a year and stuff like that?
Well, I mean, I think it's all about, it's marketing, it's sales, it's deliverables. Okay. So, I mean, you can measure, and you're always trying things with marketing, for example. One of the things that I have a new approach I'm having. I've been doing some podcasting either as a guest like here or as a host. But
Okay.
one of the things I'm going to be trying here soon is doing more what I would call kind of a group, kind of a round circle of leaders that
Mm-hmm.
I invite into a room where
Mm-hmm.
we have some instruction about exit strategies and that kind of thing, but then we have some discussion and some collaboration. So that allows me to use my time more efficiently. Plus, it gives me something to invite them to. And there'll be some processes to get in the system, sort of like, you have a pre-podcast meeting where you determine whether this is a good. I'll do the same thing with them. If they're a good fit, then I invite them to the group. And the groups will be smaller and intimate, and we'll be able to have some good discussion time and some good instructional time. And then from there, I'll have another CTA, an action that I might call them. Maybe it might be, hey, if you'd like to know what your company's worth, then I'll give you access to this assessment. So, you try things. Sometimes they work really well. Sometimes they don't work at all. You just have to keep working, finding what works for you.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with you. So where do you want Penn coaching to be in the next one year?
My goal, once again, is pretty simple. I want a handful of I would say, kind of higher level clients who really have clarity about where they want to go, what they want to do, and they just need some help getting there. And that, as much like a doctor can come along beside them and help them put together a health plan. In this case, I'm going to help them put together a business plan to help them accomplish what they want to accomplish, whether that's handing it off to their kids, selling it, becoming a private owner, or whatever they want to do. And if I can really just keep doing that and doing that at a high level, then I think that will drive the kind of clientele that I want and need. And it'll be fulfilling for me because I will help them get what they want. And
Mm-hmm.
if I can do that, then that'll be satisfying to me as well.
Yeah, that's very good. So you mentioned your goal is to get a high quality client, that you work with.
Yeah.
Either they're planning to exit or, whatever
Yeah.
need they bring to the table. So why that goal and what the specific step or metrics associated with them?
Well, I mean, to me, look, I've done this long enough now to know that I don't always want to work with everybody I come in contact with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, you probably had some clients that you really enjoyed, that you really
Yeah.
just, you actually love working with them. And then you probably had some clients you thought, if this ended tomorrow, it wouldn't be too soon.
Yeah.
Okay. So part of my goal is to sort of cherry pick the clients that I want to work with, because my engagements are longer.
Yeah. Okay.
So it could be 12 months or 24 months. I mean, the last thing you want to do is be working with someone for a couple of years that you don't even like working with.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why high clients and quality clients that I enjoy working with, that I really feel like I can help, and that we have a good, relationship, so that it's a win-win for me and it's a win-win for them.
Okay. That's very good. So if you have a magic wand to fix just one thing that is holding you back or slowing you down in Penn coaching, what would that one thing be?
I think it's just finding those clients, really connecting with them, building the trust that's necessary, and having the right kind of engagements. The wonderful thing about where I am in my life and what I need is I don't need a ton of clients.
Yeah.
I just need a handful of clients, and I don't have to have a dozen. A
Yeah.
dozen is kind of the max of what I need. So, I can have a half dozen clients a year and be fine.
Yeah.
So that's to me something that I think is very accomplishable and achievable. And so just being selective, making sure, I really feel like I can help them, making sure that we have a good relationship and that I would enjoy working with them and help them to achieve what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah. If I may ask, it might be a little bit personal, but how many clients are you working with right now this year, 2026?
Right now, I think I have 4 that I'm working with.
So you just about two short of
Yeah.
your entry
Yeah.
level.
And they come and go, but right. Once again, I'm in a different stage of life.
You say,
Yeah, and the bottom line is because I can help people at a little bit higher level. I don't need as many clients, and
Yeah.
it's a nice business model where I'm able to have a sizable impact, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to be, running and gunning 24/7 like I've done most of my life and all the
Yeah.
busyness that I've done.
Okay. So let's say a rapid fire rounds. What's biggest mistake owners make?
The biggest mistake business owners make,
Mm-hmm.
boy, that can vary a lot, but I probably go back to what I said earlier, which is building the business too much upon themselves.
Okay. So one thing every entrepreneur should automate.
One, what that they should make?
One thing every entrepreneur should automate.
Oh, should automate. Some of that, once again, may depend upon their business. You know, in some businesses, there are certain things that you can automate that are very helpful. But in another business, you might not even have that vertical or whatever. So I think a lot of it, and this is kind of how I work too. My work that I do is very customized.
Okay.
So I don't have a cookie cutter approach. I try to understand the client, know what their strengths are, know what their weaknesses are, understand, their industry, some of the, a lot of times with business owners, there's parallels. For example, marketing is always important, sales is always important. There's a lot of parallels, but they may have different personnel or different challenges or size teams or all the other kind of things. So I mean, to me, you want to automate the things that are repetitious, that you do over and over again, that take a lot of time, but they're not necessarily as valuable.
Yeah.
And you want to customize the other areas. So, it's hard to just generalize when it comes to automation because it might vary from customer to customer a great deal.
That's awesome. So best leadership traits in a founder.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one?
The best leadership traits in a founder.
Probably perseverance. When you start something and you're building something, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And you have to keep at it and stay with it and stick at it and all that. Now, there are other qualities that come into play, but usually the people that are really committed and are determined to accomplish what they set out to accomplish are the ones that are going to reach their goals. If you don't have that drive or that determination, you're probably going to get discouraged and you may even give up.
Okay. So one financial lesson every owner should learn earlier.
I think cash flow. A lot of times what happens with finances is we don't pay enough attention to cash flow because depending on how you're set up, you got to have cash coming in to take care of your expenses. And if you have personnel or whatever, every paycheck that, you get this, it hits you. And sometimes you've got money coming, but it's not there at the right time. Okay. So, structuring it where you have a good solid cash flow where you can, you're not stressing about every payable that you're doing or every payroll that's coming up. You've got adequate margins and good cash flow.
Awesome. So what separates entrepreneur who exits successfully from those who walk away exhausted?
I think trying to do too much, the sooner you understand that you shouldn't be trying to do everything.
Yeah.
You actually should only do the things, or I should say, primarily do the things that you're really good at doing.
Yeah.
Okay? Because I'll give you an example. I had a client a while back, friend, that had a small computer service company.
Okay.
And when I first started talking with him, I said, you kind of have business development or sales and marketing, kind of you're getting business, okay? And you have operations. Which one are you? Oh, he says, I'm sales without any reason. I'm no question, I'm sales. He says, look, I'm not trying to brag, but if I get before people, I close like 80% of everybody I talk to. And I said, wow, 80% close ratio, that's impressive. I said, what about the operations side? He says, no, not my thing. I hate it. I'm terrible at it. I said, okay. Right now in your company, what amount of time, energy, and focus are you putting towards sales versus operations? To my surprise, he says, I'm 85% operations and 15% sales. And I'm like, wow, I don't get it.
Yeah.
You kill it in sales and you hate operations and you're doing 85% operations?
Yeah.
So I just paused and I said, well, how's that working for you? His head dropped. He says, "It's not. Right now, I hate my life. I'm just not sure how much longer I can continue doing this. It's wearing me out. I'm exhausted all the time."
Wow.
So I said, "Well, what would happen if I could get you out of operations?" We hired someone, or you found someone who could handle, let's say, say 80% of the operations. You probably still have to do a few things because you're the owner, but could handle, most of it. Okay. And I got you out of operations and I got you back into sales. What would that do for your company? He paused. He thought about it. He says, if I did that, he says, I'd double my company in 18 months.
Wow. Awesome.
So long story made short, he found his operational guy. He got back into sales. He got into some government contracts, and his company just took off like a rocket.
Wow.
So it was a perfect example of a guy who was working hard, working long, but doing things he didn't really love doing. He wasn't really good at doing. Frankly, he didn't even, it just was depleting and exhausting him. And he had taken himself out of areas where he had a high potential and put himself in a place that just was depleting, exhausting him, and discouraging him.
Wow. That's an eye-opening. So what advice will you give business owners who are so focused on surviving today that they never think about tomorrow?
What was the middle part of the question again?
What advice will you give business owners who are so focused on surviving today that they never think about tomorrow?
Yeah, I think they need to think more long term. More than focusing on where you are right now, you need to be thinking about where you want to go. In fact, I encourage you, whether you're a startup or you already have a business going, look out to when you finally get there, what does it look like? What does it feel like? How is it structured? Who do you have on your team? All that kind of thing. Get clarity about that and then reverse engineer back to where you are. Yes. And then you can create a plan to go from where you are to where you want to be over a period of time. And it gives you a roadmap on how to get there. But a lot of people are in kind of the day-to-day survival mode. They're not thinking long-term enough. Yeah. And they don't really have a map. Okay, I give an analogy. Let's say that you're on the East Coast. Say you're in Charlotte, North Carolina. I used to live there. And I talked to someone, and he says, look, I'm going to take a trip to the West Coast. And I say, really? That's interesting. Now, the West Coast is a big place. Are you going to Washington? Are you going to Oregon? Are you going to Northern California? Are you going to Southern California? Where are you going?
Yeah.
Okay. And if he doesn't know, it's going to be hard to get there because depending on if you're going to LA, you're going to take one route to get there. If you're going to San Francisco, you're going to take a completely different route to get there. So a lot of business owners don't really have clarity about where they're going. They're general, I'm going to the West Coast, but they don't really have clarity. Well, how are you going to really get there? Particularly, how are you going to get there efficiently and effectively if you don't have clarity? So just pausing long enough, maybe getting a coach or someone that can help and helping you get clarity actually will, in the long run, save you a lot of heartache, a lot of heartburn. It also becomes kind of a decision grid. What I mean by that is once you know where you want to go and you're here and you want to go there, then when something comes up, we chase rabbits a lot of times, or squirrels, okay? But I can look at that and say, no, I'm not going to do that because it's not going to help me get to where I want to go.
Yeah.
I have clarity about where I want to go, and it helps me make decisions along the way.
Awesome. That's very good. So at the end of the day, what does a true entrepreneurial freedom looks like to you?
It's two things. It's geographical. I can live anywhere I want to live, and I have financial resources to be able to live comfortably. No, I don't mean, elaborate living, but comfortable living. I'm not worried about paying my basic bills and that kind of thing. So freedom to me gives me geographical freedom and financial freedom. And then I would say if I were to add a third one, it would be time freedom.
Okay.
Where I have some time I like to give back of my time, of my skills, of my resources. And so, all of that comes into play when I think of the word freedom.
Awesome. I really like that. Dave, it's been a very incredible, valuable conversation with you. One of the biggest takeaway from today's discussion is that a profitable business is not automatically a valuable business. And if owners fail to prepare intentionally for an exit, they risk losing every wealth and freedom they spend decades building. Dave, thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome, Phoebe. And listen, I would say this: if any of your listeners would like to connect, they can go to my website, Penn Coaching, PENN Coaching.com, or if they just want to reach out to me personally, Dave at Penn Coaching, PENN I'd be
Yeah.
glad to have a conversation with them
Yeah.
and help them in what way I could. So
Of
thanks so
course.
much for having me today.
Yeah, we're going to put all your details, contact information in the description box when we post the video in our channel. And of course, we'll send you the video as well. So
Okay.
thank you very much, Dave. I really enjoyed my time. And like I honestly said, this is the first time I'm meeting a consultant that is not just planning for now, it's planning for 80. So it's
Yeah.
a very learning experience for me, and I really appreciate it. And I believe all our viewers are also learning from that, because not many of us have seen.
Yeah, it's pretty easy not to think about it.
I'm telling the truth.
Yeah, but
So,
you really should.
yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
sir.
All right.
And
Take care.
have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye now. Thank you. All right.